So this leads us into our next one about recreational drugs. Again, I can point to this chart: dependence and physical harm. Heroin off the charts. I mean, it's off the charts. Physical harm and dependence. I mean, heroin's off the charts. Cocaine would be next. Then you got the street methadone, and you got barbiturates, which would be the next class. And then you got the alcohol, tobacco, in that order. Actually, tobacco is going to be more addictive, but alcohol is actually more harmful to you than tobacco. You got the amphetamines, the ketamine, you've got the opiates, and then the lesser of the evils are the cannabis, which is the weed, the ecstasy, and then anabolic steroids is actually the least dependent, which I wouldn't even consider it a drug. It's more of a hormone. But with anabolic steroids, it causes physical harm because it's to your reproductive system and to some of your organs. So that's where the physical harm for anabolic steroids comes from. But these other things are going to cause much more damage to you than steroids. So steroids is the bottom of the peak. So these recreational drugs are way, way above steroids when it comes to dependence and physical harm. So, unfortunately, there are people in the fitness industry, Rick, who are into partying. Sometimes there's a segment of it that's a party lifestyle. We saw that with Zizzy. He was all about, showing off his body to women, shirtless in clubs, partying, taking all kinds of drugs, ecstasy, fucking random chicks. Tell us a little bit about that, Rick. You've been around the world, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, definitely those lifestyles do not align, but there are people out there that are competitive bodybuilders, steroid users, some high-level athletes that party pretty hard with some drugs. And there's a real misconception among steroid users that like the only drug you have to stay away from is alcohol because it messes with your liver, because the way it's processed through your body, it smashes right into the way steroids are processed through your body, right through that liver. So a lot of guys think that you can not drink the alcohol, but you can do E and Coke and opiates and all this other stuff, and you're kind of fine because it doesn't strain the liver as much as alcohol does, blah, blah. Well, look, got some news for you guys. When it comes to cocaine or some of these other stimulants, amphetamines and stuff, they're going to mess with your heart. That you have especially if you're like taking like cocaine or some of these amphetamines and then going out dancing or having sex or doing anything that gets your heart rhythm going, you've got these drugs in you and now you're bringing up your heart rate. It's just not a good recipe. You're not doing anything nice there to your heart tissue. So that you have to be aware of. Opiates, unfortunately, opiates and steroids have gone hand in hand for a lot of folks. A lot of professional athletes have been on opiates and steroids at the same time. Look, there's an old documentary about a MMA fighter, Mark Kerr. The Smashing Machine is the name of the documentary. In this documentary, you follow a guy who was just smashing people in the ring over in Japan, MMA, and he was addicted to opiates the whole time through. So opiates are probably one of the most addictive and hardest drugs to kick. And it's quite unfortunate that a lot of bodybuilders will use opiates and give themselves the excuse that they're using it for some kind of joint pain, which is not legitimate. But opiates might have the lesser physical interaction maybe with steroids, but they're so addictive, you're going to have real issues with it. And eventually they'll take over your lifestyle. They took over your whole life. Marijuana is going to most likely than not make you cheat on your diet and make you less motivated for hitting the gym. Some guys I've heard like to smoke before they lift weights. A lot of guys like to smoke before doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It feels like it slows time down and you concentrate more on the muscles and the workouts. Look, if I smoke a joint, the last place I want to go is a gym. If you're going to do that, you should relax and go to bed. Don't add narcotics or add these things to your healthy lifestyle. You should make like a real clear distinction, like a real clear switch from when you're doing, when you're going to the gym and you're doing these things that are good for you and from when you're cheating. You shouldn't take narcotics or anything like that to work out. That's just not. You're blending two things together that ought not go together. If you're gonna indulge in some of these substances, it has to be a time that's far and away from your healthy lifestyle. because then you'll start to incorporate these things where you got to smoke before you lift, you smoke before you train. And some guys will even snort cocaine before they go in and lift or work out or have sex or do some of these things where like, it's just the two lifestyles don't align well together. You should just be doing one thing or the other at a time and not mix them. I wouldn't advise that.
So real quick on the weed thing, I go back to the beer example too. I mean, weed, you're smoking a weed. I mean, I don't understand what the big deal is. I've smoked it a couple of times. I mean, I don't really care. I don't need that shit in my life. I don't need to waste my money smoking a weed. I don't need to go to my garden, pick up some parsley out of my garden and smoke the parsley. I don't need to go pick up some cilantro out of my garden and smoke the cilantro. So listen, guys, the bottom line is a lot of people who smoke weed, look, I don't have a problem with it. I think weed should be legal. I think it should be legalized. I think it's silly that people are sitting in jail right now for smoking weed. But at the same time, do you really need weed in your life? Like, do you need it? Are you addicted to it? Well, it's not addictive. I hear people say it's not addictive. Then stop smoking it if it's not addictive. So I don't get it. Like, I'm lost on that one. It's one of those things you start doing. It's a habit. It's a habitual thing. You do it every day. It helps you go to sleep. It helps you do this. It helps you do that. And you get into the habit of using it, and you're wasting money using it. And I don't think there's no benefits to using it when it comes to fitness. I dated a girl who smoked weed out of a pipe, and she'd wake up in the middle of the night hacking. It was just really sad. And she liked going to the gym. She liked doing cardio, but it was killing her. I mean, she was having trouble. So I don't buy that it doesn't affect your lungs. I mean, you're smoking something into your body, but hey.
Yeah. One thing, guys, that a lot of people just don't want to accept. When you smoke a joint of marijuana, you're going to get more tar in your lungs than if you smoked a cigarette. Okay. I think I read somewhere up to 5 times as much tar for every joint. Like, you need to smoke 5 cigarettes with a filter, because remember, the cigarettes have filters on them. 5 of those cigarettes will equal to the tar in one joint. Now, marijuana hasn't been known to cause lung cancer, just because marijuana does have some chemistry in it that is cancer fighting, that it inhibits cancer growth. So I guess you're kind of filling your lungs with I guess you could say you're filling your lungs with anti-cancer tar. And this is the reason marijuana is not recognized as a cause of lung cancer, as far as I've been able to tell. But cigarettes are recognized as a cause of lung cancer. So, but don't fool yourself. You're still getting tar in your lungs. It's still going to take away from your cardio endurance. You know, it's still going to hurt you. Just smoking that joint, because there's no filter in it. It's going to burn the hairs in your lungs, and it's going to get stuck in your lungs just the same way a tar well from a cigarette.
And I just want to add too, painkillers, Rick was talking about earlier. You have to be careful with these painkillers, not just because they're addictive as fuck, because they are addictive as fuck, but also because when you're taking a painkiller as a weightlifter, okay, what's going to happen is your brain is going to say, you know what, I'm not in pain anymore. And then you're going to go to the gym and you continue lifting weights, and you're going to continue injuring yourself. So to me, it makes no sense. You're not curing your injury. You're just telling your brain, hey, I'm not injured. You guys see where I'm coming from? So that's even bigger danger of all with a weightlifter. If you're an athlete, a professional athlete, if you're Brett Favre, okay, who got his brain beat in as a quarterback in the NFL, he would take painkillers. He would inject his ass with painkillers, okay, before a game. He's making millions of dollars. You are not making millions of dollars. Don't fuck your body up like that.
And those opiates, they settle right in your bones. So when you're trying to come off of them later on, they're going to come right out of your bones, man. I've personally avoided opiate prescriptions in cases that I could have gotten them, just because I know how dangerous they are. And getting off of them, once you're on opiates, man, your bones hurt. You're going to go through bone pain like you've never had in your life trying to get off that stuff. So they're very, very dangerous, not something to play with. And all of those pharmaceutical companies that created all those opiates and distributed them to our society and caused this epidemic that's going on out there now. They're now being brought into court and are now being made to pay just a portion of the damage they made. So opiates is definitely not something to play with. It's one of the drugs that scares me the most. When I worry about my kids and their future and where this world's headed to, I worry about opiates. I worry about these hardcore drugs out there that now people can get from their doctors, from their dentist. Your dentist can prescribe you opiates if he, takes a stitch or two in your gums for whatever reason. So very dangerous, very hard to look out for. And if you're battling addiction, if you're battling one of these problems, it's just getting help is the main thing. You got to go get help. It's very hard to quit this stuff on your own.
So like a lot of you younger guys listening to this, guys, the best way to not get addicted to this shit is don't mess with it. Just say no. And it includes if you go to, like Rick said, their dentist. It's funny because I go to a dentist for a root canal and he hands me like 4 different prescriptions and I throw them all in the trash. I don't need any of that shit. You guys got to learn to say no to this stuff. I got offered drugs when I was in high school. Behind my high school, some guy, some drug addict came up to me that I went to school with. He offered me drugs. I told him no. And he looked at me like, wow, how dare you? I don't need that shit. Don't be a follower, be a leader in life. And that's the best way to avoid getting addicted to this shit.
All right, just because you're in your 30s out there, don't think that you're immune to it. Just because you're in your 30s or 40s and you think you'll never get hooked, just don't fuck with it. There are a ton of men on the street right now just looking for a fix because they were business owners. They were successful in some degree. They were high and mighty, making some decent money, and started partying, started letting that shit into their life. And now they're out on the street. So we're not just talking to the kids out there, guys. You can be, a business owner in your 40s and, hurt your ankle or hurt your back a little bit, training or whatever, get a prescription. Guess what? Your life is over at that point. You can, be a guy in your 40s, 30s, late 30s, divorce your old lady, start messing with some young girl that likes to do cocaine or E or something and mess yourself up. It happens a lot. You're not immune to it. Doesn't matter what age you are. And a lot of successful men tend to indulge in a lot of these narcotics, thinking it's like a way to relieve stress and whatnot. No, man. It doesn't matter what age you are. You're not immune to this. You can become addicted and throw your whole life away, even if you've maintain good discipline and just done all the right things into your 40s, 50s, you can get addicted to this stuff and your whole life will go down the drain real quickly.
And it's not just socioeconomical status. It's not just the going downtown and going to some, crackhead that's in the street begging for money. It's in the suburbs now. I mean, there's heroin in the suburbs. That's a big, big deal now. There's painkillers, opiates in the suburbs. That's the big fix now for these kids. Yep.
There are doctors that are going to jail now because they turned their whole communities into drug addicts. It's going to be something that society is going to be dealing with for many, many, many years to come.